So how do you make a woman miss you? Maybe it's an ex-girlfriend you still think about when the world gets quiet. Maybe it's the woman who once lit up every room you entered until she started slipping away. Or maybe it's the girl you're seeing now, the one you sense could become something more. If only she felt your absence as deeply as you feel her presence. Whatever your story is, here's what most men get wrong. They try to fill the space. They stay visible. They over-explain. They reach out when the silence gets too loud. But longing doesn't grow in noise. It grows in the stillness left by something that mattered. Missing someone isn't a reaction to absence. It's a response to presence that left a mark. If you want her to miss you, not just remember you, you have to understand how memory works. You have to know what lingers long after the moment is gone. And most of all, you have to become the kind of man whose imprint doesn't fade when the messages stop. In this video, I'm going to give you 5 ways to make her miss you. Real ways. Quiet, powerful, counterintuitive truths that shift how she sees you. Not through pressure, but through presence. Not through chasing, but through clarity. If you're ready to stop performing for attention and start becoming the kind of man she can't forget, then stay with me. Like this video and subscribe to Stoic Station, where we don't beg to be remembered. We live in a way that makes forgetting impossible. 1. Create emotional time capsules. In every connection, there are moments that fade and moments that linger long after you're gone. If you want to make a woman miss you, don't just aim to impress her. Aim to become embedded in her emotional memory, the kind that resurfaces unexpectedly and grips her heart without warning. That kind of imprint doesn't come from fancy dinners or perfect lines. It comes from what we call emotional time capsules, small, subtle, unforgettable moments tied to the senses and feelings. The kind of things that don't just remind her of you, they bring her back to you. One of the simplest yet most powerful tools, a signature scent. Not a cologne every guy wears, but one that becomes uniquely tied to you. Wear it every time you're with her. Consistency is key here, because one day she's not going to be looking for you. She'll just be walking through a store or passing someone in a crowd, and that familiar scent will stop her in her tracks. She won't even understand why her heart feels tight or why her chest fills with a memory she can't shake. That's how deep memory works. You don't always choose to remember. Sometimes memory chooses you. But it's not just about smell. Music holds power too. Share songs with her that connect to how you see the world. Songs that move you, not just trend. When she hears that tune months later on a random drive or in a crowded cafe, the lyrics won't be words anymore. They'll be you. The way you looked when you played it for her. The exact way she felt when she leaned her head on your shoulder. That moment becomes a seed planted in time, ready to bloom when she least expects it. Even places carry echoes. Take her somewhere that matters to you, somewhere quiet, personal, a spot with soul. Not just another bar or restaurant, but a place that becomes yours together. Maybe it's a little art gallery no one talks about, a hiking trail you've walked alone for years, a sunrise spot where the city feels like it stands still. Give her that space and tie it to a meaningful experience. Because when she returns, whether months later or years, she'll feel your presence in the air like it never left. Inside jokes, phrases only the two of you understand, are time capsules too. They create a private world, a world that's hard to recreate with anyone else. Every time something reminds her of that joke or that moment, she'll find herself smirking for no reason. And no one else will get it. That's when it stings. In the best way. It's not about grand gestures, it's about moments charged with meaning, anchored in the senses, and repeated enough to feel like emotional fingerprints. Here's the thing most men never realize. Women don't always miss the whole relationship. Sometimes they miss a single second. The way you laughed that night in the rain. The way your voice softened when you told her a story from your past. The exact tone of your cologne when you hugged her goodbye. Those seconds, those fragments, are what come back to haunt her, not with regret, but with nostalgia, with ache, with a pull she didn't prepare for. Our minds forget names, conversations, even faces, but feelings attached to a scent, a song, a space, those can outlast everything. That's how you stay with her, long after she's tried to move on, through triggers she can't turn off, through memories she didn't choose, through invisible threads that tug at her heart when the world is silent. So don't just try to be unforgettable. Be unescapable. Give her a piece of you she can't return, even if she walks away. 2. Leave on a high note. There's an art to knowing when to walk away, not because the moment is fading, but because it's still burning bright. That's when it leaves a mark. That's when it lingers in her memory. Most men think connection is built by staying, by soaking in every second while it's still good. But what they don't realize is this: it's not the length of time that creates impact. It's the emotional peak and your ability to step away while it's still rising. When she's smiling, leaning in, her guard is down, and everything feels light and real. That's your moment to go. Not to disappear forever, but to leave just enough space for her to feel the contrast, the shift from having you right there to suddenly wondering where you went. It's tempting to stay. When the energy is flowing, when her laughter wraps around you, when every word lands and the chemistry feels effortless, you want to extend it. But stretching out a high moment doesn't make it stronger. It dilutes it. And if you're not careful, you'll cross that invisible line, from memorable to overstaying, from confident to needy, from magnetic to predictable. The problem is, you rarely know when you've crossed it. You just feel something subtle shift. Maybe the vibe drops. Maybe her smile becomes more polite. Maybe you start reaching for topics instead of riding the rhythm. And in that slip, everything you built begins to quietly unravel. You thought staying longer would deepen the connection, but it doesn't. It leaks neediness. It exposes your desire to hold on. And that's when things get dangerous. Because from that place, it's only a short step to saying something you don't mean, but feel in the moment. Something like, why can't we give this another shot? Not because the timing is right, not because she's ready to hear it, but because you stayed too long and couldn't handle the silence that followed. That's how the mystery dies. That's how attraction collapses. She doesn't walk away because you weren't good company. She walks away because the magic shifted into pressure. The space that made her curious turned into a space that asked her to decide. And decisions kill desire. So instead, train yourself to leave while the light is still golden. End the phone call while she's still smiling. Say goodbye while she's still mid-laugh. Walk away while her heart is still stirred. Let the story pause on a peak, not a plateau. Because longing doesn't come from having more. It comes from being interrupted before you're ready. From the echo of a moment that didn't get to fade on its own. When she finds herself alone, thinking, I wish he had stayed just a little longer. You've done it right. You've placed yourself in her mind not as the guy who lingered, but the man who left her wanting. There's a line that separates emotional presence from emotional overstay, and learning where that line is, learning to trust that timing, is what sets you apart. It's what leaves her glancing at her phone hours later, hoping your name pops up. It's what makes her replay your last words over and over again, because they felt complete yet unfinished. Like a song that ends right before the final chorus. Anyone can show up. Few know when to leave. So don't aim to fill every silence or stretch every moment. Be the man who knows when to walk away, not because the connection wasn't real, but because it was so good. It deserved to be remembered that way. Third stop, social media stalking. There's a dangerous illusion that watching her social media keeps you close, that knowing where she went last weekend, who she followed recently, or which quote she posted gives you an edge. That somehow, by staying digitally in the loop, you're maintaining a connection. But what you're actually doing is imprisoning yourself in a one-sided story, one that fuels obsession, not clarity. Every time you check her story, scroll her feed, or click through tagged photos, you're feeding the illusion of presence while quietly reinforcing your absence. Because here's the brutal truth. She's not posting for you. She's living. And when you make her highlight reel your emotional reality, you fall into a trap. One photo with a guy you don't know, one caption that seems a little too flirtatious, one location that makes your stomach twist, and suddenly you're spiraling. You start imagining things that aren't real. You build narratives out of fragments. And before you know it, you're hurt by stories you wrote yourself. That's what stalking does. It doesn't keep you informed. It keeps you emotionally handcuffed to someone who may not even be thinking about you anymore. And it doesn't stop there. The damage leaks into real life, because the more you watch her, the more you know, more than you should. And eventually, it shows. Maybe you bring up something she never told you directly. How was that concert? You ask, like it's casual. But to her, it's not. She never told you about the concert. And now she knows. You've been watching, silently, obsessively. What feels to you like connection, like caring, translates to her as exposure, emotional surveillance. And nothing kills attraction faster than the realization that you're still orbiting her while she's already moved on. This is where you lose power without even realizing it. Because your silence stops feeling like confidence and starts to look like quiet desperation. Like you're still waiting, still watching, still stuck. But the man who doesn't watch her life, he becomes the question mark. He becomes the thing she notices missing. She wonders what you're up to because she doesn't see it. She wonders who you're with because you're not leaving breadcrumbs. That's where the real pull begins, not from your presence in her notifications, but from your absence in her world. And if she does check your profile and finds nothing, no sad quotes, no reaction photos, no subtle jabs, it hits different. It says you're not playing the game anymore, that you've stepped out of her frame, and maybe into something better, into your own life. There's strength in disappearing from her digital view. It's not about being spiteful, it's about reclaiming your attention, about choosing your peace over constant comparison. Because the more you look at her page, the less you look at your path. And the longer you stay caught in that cycle, the harder it becomes to actually let go or to become the man she might one day miss. You thought staying connected was the way back. But connection born from desperation never lasts. And when you reveal that you've been watching all along, you don't look strong. You look small, powerless, predictable. But the man who resists that urge, the man who chooses not to know, he builds mystery. He earns dignity. He walks away, not with resentment, but with self-respect. So stop refreshing her feed. Stop decoding every post. Let her be whoever she's going to be, without your eyes on her every move. Because when you finally stop watching her life, she just might start wondering about yours. 4. Use mystery and subtle jealousy. There's a reason why mystery has always been more powerful than clarity. Not because people love confusion, but because our minds are wired to chase answers we don't yet have. In relationships, especially after distance or a breakup, this instinct is even more potent. That's why mystery, when used right, isn't about hiding or playing games. It's about creating space. Space that invites curiosity. space that lets her imagination do the work you could never do with words. Jealousy, in its most effective form, doesn't come from provocation. It comes from silence, from what's not said, from the things she senses but can't confirm. Most men get this wrong. They try to make her jealous by being obvious, posting selfies with other women, bragging about dates, throwing flirtation into captions and comments hoping she'll notice. And maybe she does, but not in the way they hope. Because when a woman knows you're trying to make her jealous, she doesn't feel attraction. She feels control. She feels power. She knows you're still emotionally tied to her, that you're watching her, waiting for her reaction. And the moment she realizes that, the entire effect collapses. The man who wanted to appear desired ends up looking desperate. The more obvious your tactics, the more you shrink in her eyes. But mystery works differently. It lingers. It whispers instead of shouts. It makes her question her assumptions, and in those questions, she feels your presence stronger than if you texted her every day. Picture this. You post a photo, 2 drinks on a dimly lit bar table, a whiskey in one glass, a bright green appletini in the other. No caption, no location tag, no tags on people, just the image, just enough to suggest but never confirm company. She sees it. She pauses. She wonders. That pause, that flicker of attention, that's the seed of missing you. You tell her you were out of town for the weekend. You don't say with who. She asks and you offer a vague smile. Just needed a break. That's it. Nothing more. No explanations. No extra details. And suddenly the silence becomes louder than any answer you could have given. Her mind starts to wander. Was it a friend? Was it someone new? Was he with another woman? Or maybe he's just enjoying life in a way he didn't before. Without me? That internal questioning, that subtle uncertainty, is what triggers her emotional engagement again. Not because she feels tricked, but because you've pulled away the comfort of predictability. And predictability is the enemy of attraction. She doesn't miss you when she knows everything. She misses you when there's a part of your life she no longer has access to, when there's a part of your mind, your heart, your experiences that she's no longer invited into. That absence stings more than any angry silence or reactive post ever could. Most women expect the post-breakup version of you to behave in patterns. You'll check her stories, you'll like her photos, you'll message her on her birthday, you'll show signs of struggle, whether obvious or subtle. That's what she counts on, because if she can predict you, she can place you. And if she can place you, you're no longer dangerous. You're safe, familiar, contained. But what happens when you don't play that role? What happens when she checks your feed and there's no sadness, no chaos, just calm, quiet, composed presence? What happens when she can't tell if the silence between you is detachment or strength? That's when the shift begins. That's when you stop being the man she broke away from and start becoming the man she underestimated. Subtle jealousy paired with emotional distance is not about manipulation. It's about transformation. It's about allowing her to feel what she thought she never would, the discomfort of wondering if she truly lost something irreplaceable. It's in the way you carry yourself when you're no longer trying to be seen, when your life continues to expand, when you seem lighter, more grounded, more magnetic, but without her in the frame. It's in the absence of need in your voice if you do speak. It's in the way your eyes seem like they've seen something she hasn't, like you've touched something she's no longer part of. That's what makes her miss you. Not because you're trying to be missed, but because you've become a version of yourself that no longer waits for her permission to live. And here's the truth most men don't want to hear. If you want her to come back, if you want her to feel the weight of losing you, it can't come from trying to trigger a reaction. It has to come from becoming the kind of man who doesn't need one. Jealousy that works doesn't look like jealousy. It looks like mystery. It feels like a quiet void that she didn't notice until you were gone. It feels like walking past a closed door she never expected to find locked. And in that locked door, she finds something rare. A man she didn't finish figuring out. A man who slipped out of her reach just when she thought she had him fully understood. That's when the longing begins. Not when you shout that you've moved on, but when you let her wonder if you ever looked back. Mystery isn't deception, it's depth withheld, it's silence used wisely. It's that powerful empty space where she starts to replay your name without knowing why. 5. Make her feel she's not your only option. One of the most dangerous lies she'll believe after pulling away is that you're still stuck. That somewhere out there you're pacing your apartment, scrolling through her photos, replaying old conversations, and quietly waiting for her to change her mind. And the truth is, if you're not intentional about it, she might be right. Most men fall into this trap without realizing it. They think that patience is loyalty, that distance means pause, that their absence should be obvious enough to remind her what she walked away from. But what they're actually doing is standing still while she moves on, waiting in emotional limbo and calling it strength. She doesn't feel your presence in that silence. She feels power, because in her mind, she's still the center of your world, and you haven't done anything to make her question that. But that's where everything shifts. When you begin to live, not in reaction to her, not to make a point, but because your life demands your full attention again, something unexpected happens. She starts to feel the one thing she thought she was immune to, replaceable, not in a spiteful, careless way, but in the most subtle, disarming way imaginable. She doesn't see you trying to prove your worth. She sees you discovering it again, and the version of you who wakes up early for a run, who joins that club you always said you'd try, who finds joy in new circles and new challenges, that version doesn't orbit her anymore. He revolves around something deeper: purpose, movement, evolution. Start small. Pick up something that pulls your focus away from your past and toward your future. Maybe it's something physical, like boxing, hiking, or swimming. Maybe it's creative, photography, painting, writing. Maybe it's community, joining a club, a volunteering group, a local travel meetup. But whatever it is, let it be real. Let it matter more than checking who liked her last post or whether she saw your story. Because here's the truth she doesn't expect. The man who was once so emotionally available, so consumed by her presence, now seems a little more distant, a little less predictable. And unpredictability breeds intrigue. She checks your page, not out of longing but out of curiosity, and what she sees surprises her. You're smiling, but it's not forced. You're busy, but not performative. Your life looks full, not curated, not crafted to provoke her, but naturally vibrant. She scrolls, and something begins to unsettle her. She realizes she doesn't know you anymore. Not this version, not the man who's learning to live without her. And that's when it hits. She imagined you stuck. She imagined you alone. She imagined you replaying every moment and quietly hoping for her return. But what she sees now doesn't align with that fantasy, and it shakes her. Because when a woman loses the security of being your emotional center, she doesn't just feel confused, she feels tension, urgency, that if she waits too long, she may not get to come back to the same place or the same man. And that's where the power dynamic flips. You're no longer the one sitting in uncertainty. You're no longer the one seeking closure or clarity. You're not bitter. You're not cold. You're just full, focused, free. She may still be beautiful. She may still be everything she was when you adored her. But now, she's not the only path you see ahead of you. She's not the only future your heart can imagine. And she can feel it, even from a distance. Because the man who moves forward without resentment, who reinvents himself without noise, who finds wholeness without apology, becomes unforgettable. You are no longer the safe option waiting in the shadows. You are now the experience she might never get the chance to touch again. And that changes everything. Summary. And when all is said and done, here's what truly makes a woman miss you. Missing someone doesn't begin the moment they walk away. It begins in the quiet that follows someone unforgettable. It's not absence alone that creates longing. It's the weight of presence that meant something. Not just words spoken, but how you made her feel without trying. Not just the memories you shared, but the calm confidence you carried while you were still in her life, and especially after you were gone. Too many men believe that staying visible means staying relevant. That if she keeps seeing your name pop up, your story in her feed, your messages in her inbox, she'll remember. But that's not what creates impact. What stays with her is the man who didn't try to be remembered, but was unforgettable because of how he moved. She won't miss you because you chased her. She won't miss you because you proved you were hurting. She'll miss you because when she finally paused to look around, you were already becoming someone more, someone stronger, someone she no longer had access to. You don't need to explain your value to be felt. You don't need to beg to be missed. The man who quietly lives with purpose, who doesn't flinch in silence, who doesn't perform in pain, that's the man who echoes in a woman's heart long after the messages stop. And when she does miss you, it won't be in the way she expected. It won't be because you told her to. It'll be because something in her day, a moment, a scent, a song, reminds her of what she once had and quietly lost. It'll be because your absence wasn't empty. It was composed. It didn't ask for attention. It left a trace. So live with clarity. Speak less. Move with quiet strength. Let your life become full again. Not in reaction to her leaving, but in honor of who you're becoming. And when she finally wonders about you, because she will, there will be no noise, no desperation, no mess to clean up, just a man she once knew, who became someone she can't quite reach anymore. That's what truly makes a woman miss you, and that's what she won't forget. If this message touched something deep inside you, let it be your turning point. You don't need noise to be remembered. What you need is presence, clarity, growth. Let her miss the man who no longer waits to be chosen. Let your silence speak of power, not pain. And if you're ready, truly ready, to live with strength, not desperation, then you're exactly where you need to be. Like this video and subscribe to Stoic Station, where stillness becomes strength and self-worth is never negotiable.